The opinions expressed in the following programs are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect those of Rogers nor Rogers TV.
Welcome to The Next Element. I'm your host, Deb Valentine. Have you ever been uncomfortable in a place and couldn't figure out why? Felt like you're being watched, but no one is there? We're going to explore the spirit world today. A published author, a spiritual medium, host of the show Ghosts of Dufferin County and Beyond, I am pleased to welcome one of Canada's top psychics, Marianne Kennedy. Welcome, Marianne.
Thanks, Debbie. Thanks for having me.
It's such a pleasure. So, Marianne, we'll just get right into it. Please tell us, what is a psychic medium? Because there seems to be a lot of confusion between the terms psychic, psychic medium. If you could just give us some clarification.
Sure. Yeah, we can unpack that a little bit. Being psychic and being a medium or mediumistic actually are two different things. But if you are a medium, you are also a psychic. But if you are a psychic, you may not be a medium. And so being a medium or being mediumistic is having the ability to perceive the spirit world, receive information from that world, translate it in some way, and then deliver information to someone here who is ready or wanting to receive that. By comparison, being a psychic has nothing to do with communicating with an actual being in the spirit world. Rather, psychics, we are aware of non-form information. All people, places, objects, all things have information in their energy field. And as psychics, we can tune into that. We perceive it very easily. But in mediumship, we are having communication with the direct being on the other line of contact, where in the spirit world, we don't have an active being on the other end of our line of contact trying to transmit information to us. So they are two very different things, but in order to be a medium, you do have to be psychic. But I don't want that to present a misconception that you have to be born any of these things. You don't have to be born psychic or born mediumistic to be a psychic or to be a medium.
Okay, thank you. So I know when we're talking about working with energy, we have different types of energy. We have low vibrational energy and high vibrational energy. Could you elaborate a little bit on those for me?
Sure. I mean, we have energy that, is on a scale, and it's got all parts of a spectrum. So we can have low energy, high energy, and that isn't just related to human beings, living folks, because it applies to us too. We all are made of energy, and we perceive that, in a number of ways. So some folks might experience a living person that feels a little bit low energy to them, or high energy. You can experience the same with locations. You can visit locations that are high energy or low energy, or anywhere within that spectrum. And you can also experience ghosts or spirit people that also may be perceived or felt as low energy or high energy. So all things have consciousness or essence to them. Things, people, places, objects, all of those things. And yes, there's a spectrum of vibrational frequency or energy, as we might generically refer to it. And for sure, even non-psychic people have likely had experiences with either a person, a place, a thing, like an object, that they perceive as, wow, this thing really makes me feel super hyped, or this person, I just feel amazing when I'm around them. Or when I visit this location, I just feel in the zone. I feel amazing. And then conversely, you've probably, had interactions with people that maybe give you a little bit of the heebie-jeebies, or you feel really depleted of energy after interacting with them. Or you may have been to a location that just makes you feel like you want to get out of there. So I think that we can perceive energy as we're referring to it, whether we're psychic or not. I think ordinary folks interact with energy all the time, even if they're not, aware that that's also occurring beneath the surface of the physical interaction.
Okay, so it's just those feelings that we may get that will determine whether it's a good energy or a bad energy then. Is that fair enough to say?
It's fair enough to say, but there are always exceptions. Sometimes we are, we have a preconceived idea about a person, about a place, about an experience. We might have a fear body around, visiting something like a graveyard, for example, or maybe being in contact with spirit people. So sometimes those fears or worries or beliefs even can sort of distort our experience. And the experience is imbued by something that we're already afraid of, even if there's nothing to be afraid of. So we can't always trust our feelings when we're perceiving energy. We can if we know that we're going into an experience clear of any of those preconceived ideas or beliefs or, limiting thoughts around situations, people, or whatever it is that we're interacting with.
Okay, so Marianne, I've watched quite a few episodes of your show, The Ghosts of Dufferin County and Beyond, and so I know when you're entering a space, you don't necessarily research a lot about it beforehand. Can you tell us why that is?
Well, for the purposes of the show, actually, no research is done ahead of time. If anything, it would be, if it was in our geographic area, then we may have, prior to ever filming the show, have known that place or have been there before. But for the purposes of the show, I think it's important to demonstrate, the genuine nature of what we're doing in terms of investigating energy. And part of that authenticity is to go in with no information ahead of time, present the information that we're interacting with or discovering on site, and compare that with real life information that the proprietor or the homeowner or the business owner may have experienced. Because what we find is that, what we discover in terms of, the presence of ghosts or spirit people or objects that may be haunted, or the land itself that may have low energy attachments or a difficult history that, is perceived as, a little bit of like a heebie-jeebie feeling there. It's important, and we are able to demonstrate it often on the show, that what we're picking up without knowing anything ahead of time aligns with the truth and reality of the history of that location. And I think that that's an important part of the show, and that's why we don't sort of research that ahead of time. But on the other side of practice, when I, in real life, not as part of the show, visit locations, it is important for me to know ahead of time from whoever it is that I'm working for what their experience is, partly because we have a, predetermined period of time that we have to spend with said person at location. And for the purposes of real life practice, I'm not investigating locations to demonstrate that, hey, there is something more than the physical world. I'm doing that work rather to help someone in their situation. So the purpose isn't just to investigate, but to clear if needed, as well as sometimes provide consultation or counseling for the person that I'm working with.
Okay. So quite a bit different than actually doing the show than when you're actually working with clients.
Yes and no. We have had episodes on the show where we went the step further to also clear the location.
Okay. And just out of curiosity, why would you clear a location? Why would you have a spirit cross over to the next realm, I guess?
Yeah, I mean, typically we're going to clear a location if there's it's not always clearing for ghosts, right? Sometimes we have imprints that are a negative sort of residual memory within the space, and that's perceived by the people that live in or occupy the space. And for them, it's a negative contribution to their life. They don't enjoy the feeling. They don't like what it feels like. They don't like how they experience it. They may see visions or have strong emotions pop up for them out of nowhere that don't make them feel comfortable. So the purpose of clearing is to settle an experience that someone here in the physical world is having when it's not beneficial to their life. And then beyond that, beyond this, a duty to service for folks that are here, as a medium, I also have a duty of service to people either in the spirit world or those who have, left the physical body, but they're still grounded to form or grounded to this reality. They have an attachment to something here and don't want to continue on with their journey. Part of my role and job as a medium is to help them too. And so, yes, I do this work often for clients or part of the show. But I also have a duty to the non-transition spirits that I encounter if I'm in a situation where, I can be of service. And that's not always the case, right? If I'm, shopping somewhere, visiting or traveling with my family, I may run into grounded spirits, and I really don't have time or capacity to help them at that time. But what I know from spirit is that they eventually sort of either come into the awareness of what their options are to continue on with their journey, or they have assistance in other ways. So I know it's not always on me. It's not always on us as mediums to help spirits that are grounded to form or our ghosts. We're all here to help each other. And there are helping spirits in the spirit world that also can assist in that journey.
Okay. And Marianne, can you explain what the difference is between an imprint and an actual presence?
For sure. Yeah. An imprint is like a residual memories of a location. So it's, and usually they're determined by either a huge emotional charge around the occurrence, or sometimes it's just, like a period of time. So a lengthy period of time, if the same action or the same occurrence or the same person occupied this space, or the same thing was going on over and over and over again for extended periods of time, it's like an energetic carbon copy exists within the unified field. So the energy field of that location. And as psychics, we can perceive that almost like a Groundhog Day. It's like this scene or this energy or this feeling just repeating over and over and over again. And in real time, it's not occurring, but it did at some point. And so those residual hauntings are often misperceived as spirits or ghosts' presence. And in fact, a lot of the time it isn't, but that imprint needs to be cleared because it's of a lower energy that's being perceived here in the physical world. And again, it all comes down to the person occupying the space. If they perceive an imprint and it doesn't impact them in a non-beneficial or in a negative way, then it's not a big deal. It's not affecting their life. But when it is, then it's something that we want to deal with.
Okay. And how would you clear an imprint versus having a spirit crossover?
Without getting into the technical of how to do spirit release, the process is actually quite the same, except in a spirit releasement, the ghost or the grounded energy, they have to be a willing participant for the most part. And so sometimes in movies and, sometimes in some TV shows, fictionalized ones, it can be presented that we're compelling that spirit to vacate the space and we can be more powerful than them. But, in my experience with this work, they have to be willing. They have to be a part of it. And if they don't choose, we have free will choice here in the physical world. We also have free will choice in the spirit world. And so they have to be a participant in it. For the most part, whereas when we're clearing the energy of a space or the energy of an object, we don't have to have necessarily what we'd call a willing participant on the other end, because it's not a conscious being, although there is essence. So there's consciousness, but not in the sense of awareness, but just in the sense of essence.
Okay. And can spirits give you the illusion that they've crossed and haven't really crossed?
Yes and no. Grounded spirits or ghosts have various levels of intelligence. And so I would say if you are an experienced psychic medium, no, you couldn't be fooled. Mostly because, when you do this work and you do it professionally and you've done it for a long time, nothing is taken at face value. We always feel deeply into whatever the experience is. So, often when I'm doing an energy clearing, either on a person or in a location, there could be energies within that field that try to present as positive. For example, sometimes I might see something like a smiley face emoji, or an angel wing, something trying to present as, on the surface positive, but looking beneath the surface into the feeling, we can often perceive something deeper.
Sorry, Marianne, I'm just going to have to interrupt you. We have to go to break, but we'll certainly come back. So stay tuned and we'll be back to chat some more with Marianne Kennedy after the break.
This program is brought to you by Ignite TV. Now you're in command. Visit Rogers.com for more details.
I'm afraid your driver has tendered his resignation. I've lined you up a new driver.
City TV, Tuesday.
You must be the investigators.
Investigator.
Aren't you in recovery? Well, I'm guessing that's sort of how you lost your driver's license in the first place.
You got a lot to learn about the PI business.
Sometimes you gotta color outside the lines.
Wong and Winchester. All new Tuesdays, 9/8 Central on City TV.
The opinions expressed in the following programs are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect those of Rogers nor Rogers TV.
Welcome back to The Next Element with me, Deb Ballantyne, and my special guest, Marianne Kennedy.
Hi, guys. Thanks for coming back.
So, Marianne, how do you prepare when you're going either like with the show or with one of your clients? How do you prepare before you go into a space?
Oh, that's a good question. I have a pretty dialed in preparation process. I teach a lot. I teach a lot of mediumship. I teach a lot of psychic practice. I also teach psychic investigating. And interestingly, as part of the show, I've brought students on a number of episodes where they are putting into practice what they've sort of learned in the classroom with me. But my preparation includes a lot of clearing of my own energy so that I go in very unbiased, very neutral. And that's really important to be able to do that. I also work with a team of spirit individuals. So I have a spirit team, guides, angels, my own ancestors that I work with. Spirit animals, helping spirits are a part of the process with me. And that's all so that, one, I can protect my own energy, but, protection is really, it is part of the process, but I'm there to help. And so I want to make sure that, I have integrity in my own energy field so that I can be a powerful presence in the assistance of whatever energy is needing a shift or a change in that place. So that preparation always takes place before I enter into a location.
Okay, and just let's go to the other end. When you've finished an appointment, for lack of a better term, is there anything that you do afterwards in order to clear any energies that you have?
Yeah, what a great question. Yes, it's like a reversal process. So it's very similar to the preparation process. And then there's a clearing process afterward. We can pick up junk energy in our energy field that doesn't belong to us, whether you're a psychic or not. And so it's really important, especially when I'm entering into low energy spaces, that there aren't any remnants of that energy that I'm taking home with me. And so the clearing process is important, but even before the clearing, the awareness is important. I have to understand what is baseline me. I have to understand what is my energy very, very distinctly so that I can be aware when there's something in my energy field that doesn't belong to me. And when I'm really aware of who I am, then it's really easy for me to be able to tell that this bit isn't me and needs to be removed from my field.
Okay, and for somebody that's sort of new to psychic mediumship, how would they get to know the difference between what is sort of their energy and what's sort of been tagging on or attached to them?
Well, it's a good question. I mean, it's certainly not a practice. That aspect of this work is not a beginner practice. It's not a beginner aspect of this work. Coming to know yourself really deeply and clearly of, what's your own thoughts, what are your own beliefs, what are your own emotions, and what are your own physical sensations. It takes practice. Often the development of a meditation practice is helpful because we can bring ourselves to a space of sort of no mind or nothingness. And be able to develop, what I like to call the observer's perspective. So we can see ourselves through a neutral lens versus always through the experiencer of who we are, because we can often, we have bias toward ourselves. And we also have a lot of fears at play. We can, attempt to scan our own energy field and find something there that feels a little bit gnarly. I'm not sure what that is, but we'd really like to convince ourselves that it's just us. And it's not something that we need to have removed because sometimes it can be frightening. But not that there's anything to be afraid of, but it can be. And so, developing a meditation practice to be able to enter into stillness and neutral observation of oneself, one's own feelings, emotions, energy. We all have an energy body as well as our physical body. So being able to tune into that is something that you have to sort of develop into, but it absolutely can be done. And it's also an essential foundational piece to becoming a psychic or a medium.
Okay. So just on that same vein, you were talking about, possibly being afraid. Have you ever been in a situation where you have been afraid?
Yeah, I mean, before I was a professional, yes, I would have experiences when I was younger that were frightening to me, and I think that that's the case for a lot of folks. And the actual, the inspiration behind creating Ghosts of Dufferin County and Beyond was to share the message that really there's nothing to be afraid of. The spirit world or non-form reality certainly can affect us in our lives, but at the deepest level of fear, which often is death or loss of purpose or loss of life, the spirit world can't do that to us. And so, the power inherent within the physical body is so gigantic that we can really root ourselves deeply in that power and not be afraid of anything that doesn't have a physical component to it. Yes, we can, as I say, we can be impacted, but we are ultimately most powerful when we're in form. And so, spreading that message or sharing that message was the inspiration behind creating the show. And then I always say, when I'm teaching students, especially in psychic investigation, that if you have a fear body, let's discover what it is now and let's talk about it. Let's unpack it. Let's anatomize it. Let's really hash it out. And then what we do is I always, the way to transform out of these types of fears is to replace the fear space that you're occupying with knowledge. Knowledge is hugely powerful. Knowledge will transmute fear into power. And so understanding the dynamics of how we engage and interact with the spirit world, understanding loosely the lay of the land, because there's a mystery component to it as well. And also learning from an experienced individual, that's come across all kinds of interesting circumstances and understand how to navigate through that, but also to do it with mentorship is hugely powerful in stepping out of fear and into power.
Okay. So we're going to switch gears a little bit. And Marianne, when you're communicating with spirit and they're communicating with you, does it actually come through your spirit team, or are you communicating directly with spirit? Do they talk to you like you and I are talking right now?
Great question. All mediums work a little bit differently. For me, I have a direct contact. So I have no perception that spirit people are moving information or transmitting information through my spirit team to me. This is a direct communication that I have with spirit. And I don't experience it or perceive it any other way, but that doesn't mean that that's not the case for other mediums. It's just the way that it works for me. And, spirit people, and I talk about this in my upcoming book, my new one, spirit people don't have bodies, right? So they have shed the physical body on departure from the physical world, which means they don't have voice boxes, which also means they don't speak. So the perception from, media and movies, et cetera, is that we talk to spirit people as mediums. And, some of us perceive voice or words or phrases, but we do not have, a dialogue the way you and I are having right now. And if we did, then all mediums would be able to say, okay, I have someone who's walked in the room, is sitting down with me, and their name is Marianne Kennedy, and their license plate is this was the birthday, and this was their telephone number, right? We'd all be able to do that, but we basically have an interaction that is quite like charades, but a little more difficult, because even in charades, you have a human that's alive acting out information with their body, and spirit people don't have that anymore. So it's like charades, similar to that. Certainly it's not a conversation. There's no talking involved.
So do they communicate using symbolism? We often hear things like clairaudient or clair-knowing, a clairvoyant, that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. So is it symbolism that comes through as far as the communication is concerned?
So the language of spirit is very symbolic, and it's because they can't speak and don't have bodies and diaphragms to transmit sound and et cetera. So yes, their language is very symbolic. They use a medium's term of reference. They also transmit information through images, feelings, impressions, sensations. For me, I have to translate about half of the information that spirit people transmit to me. And so they know very well, they have immediate access to the mind. We are practicing mental mediumship, those who are evidential mediums. And so they have access to all my banks of memories stored in my mind, symbols that equal certain things to me, whether in a spiritual term or not. For example, when I was a new medium, spirit people used to show me an image of an apple when they wanted to acknowledge a teacher. Either they were a teacher or the person I'm reading for is a teacher. And that's simply because somewhere in my memory bank, I equated an apple on a desk with a teacher. And so, yes, their language is symbolic. Yes, we have to do translation. Some of it is very literal. All mediums also work differently. So, this is how I work with spirit, and that might be different from someone else.
Okay, so it's almost like you develop your own dictionary in order to be able to communicate or to gain the meaning of what they're trying to communicate to you.
Yeah, certainly there's a psychic dictionary at play in mediumship communication. There is, for sure. But they also, will use symbols or impressions that have nothing to do with a psychic dictionary. And an example might be, if they want me to talk about someone named Michael, they might have me just think about my brother. His name is Michael. And so that's the association. So they use our mind to, use the psychic dictionary to translate meanings, but they also just use our mind and our own life experiences, our own situations we've been through to get us to speak about something either identical or very, very similar.
That's fascinating. So, through our discussions, one of my questions was, could anyone be develop the skills to be a medium? And I think you've already answered that for us. So that's wonderful. So Marianne, tell my viewers where they can find you.
You bet. So I can be reached through my website, of course, mariannekennedy.ca, and I am on Facebook, Spiritual Medium Marianne Kennedy. And coming this March, my book number 2 is being released, and I think we're doing a little return to in-person events for some book signings and live shows. So that's me.
That's wonderful. You'll have to keep us updated on when those in-person events can be, so my viewers can and myself can come out and see you. So, Marianne, just tell me one more thing. When did you realize you had the gift?
Well, I didn't have a gift. It was an ability that I developed. So I wasn't born a psychic or a medium. I was an observant kid for sure, but it wasn't something that I've had my whole life. I developed into mediumship because I chose to study it. And I did that after I lost my dad. And that sort of propelled me into this practice.
Okay. And so when did you, when did you consider yourself, how do I put this? When did you consider yourself past sort of the beginner stage, or how did you come to the point where you wanted to do this as a profession?
I was in study for about 2 years. Yeah. And I think in that period, I probably, maybe gave 1,000 readings or more. I took this study very seriously, and I did a lot of practice, and I did a lot of workshops and traveling to learn, et cetera. And so it was, I took it on just like I was taking a university degree program. That's the way that I approached it. And I'm a lifelong learner that way. And so, and so I took it very seriously. And then that really paid off for me. I had experience as a young person with psychic work, but not in mediumship. So I think that probably helped as well. But that was my approach.
Wonderful. Well, thank you, Marianne, for joining us on the show. We wish you luck with your new book, and we look forward to those in-person events so that we can get our books signed. And thank you for tuning in to The Next Element. I'm Deb Ballantyne. Until next time, with light and love. Bye-bye.
Call the Rogers TV viewer response line, email us, or connect with us on social media.
When an impaired driver killed my brother DJ, my life changed forever.